It's time to awaken and remember who you really are. It's time to live a life that you absolutely love. And it is time for the awakened being. Conversations to create change. Having real, transparent conversations that will change your world. And together, we can change the world.
Hello, my loves. It is Sundari, aka Marci Locke Mentor. And today's show is a series in the Conversations of the Beloved. It is a conversation with my former beloved, Dallas Michael Sear, and just sharing some deep, authentic, transparent, raw, very real experience with relationship and talking about twin flames, soul companionship, all the labels, the meanings, the stories we sometimes give things, and how we get to shed the continual conditioning that we've been ingrained with that's creating our own suffering, and how to actually live in the present moment and be in continual up-leveling and uprising, learning to be the divine feminine and masculine and a complete divine union and beloved to yourself, as well as those in your experience, to be able to have greater and greater evolution of relationships. So I'm super excited to share this with you. It's very raw, very real. And also know that you can go to marcilocke.com to get the ultimate life of having it all meditation for free anytime you want. Be able to support you by utilizing that tool every single day and implementing into your greater life experience. Along with that, you can also find specific coachings, meditations, activations that can support you in whatever you're dealing with. And my ultimate recommendation is, of course, checking out the Best Life Tribe and being a part of that, because there is so much there on supporting you on the entire path of now living your very best life. So we are all here to rise in love. So happy to be on the journey with you and to share this very real, raw, beautiful conversation and life experience. I love you, my friends. Enjoy the show. Hello, my dear friends. I'm so excited to have a very special conversation that I feel like can create a lot of change. It's also a little bit of like, ooh, because it is the total transparency and vulnerability and authenticity that we stand for. And I'm the person you hear sitting here going, is the one and only Dallas Michael Sear, who has actually shared the space with me as my beloved and a twin flame reflection for the past 3 years. I'm gonna cry.
Aww.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. So on and off. And last night we got to do a beautiful ceremony in just honor and appreciation. And so I didn't expect the tears to come because we already did all this. But it's because this is so tender to my heart to be so transparent. And so
I might cry.
Just to give the liberation codes that I'm here to deliver. And I know you're here as a truth setter, and you stand for truth and enlightenment and freedom as well. And so just to kind of recap, I mean, so Dallas and I, yes, it's been almost exactly 3 years ago since we met. And we did the dance of on, off, as beloveds and twin flame reflections. And for me, I wasn't willing to accept that at one point because I thought twin flames meant you had to be soul companions. You that meant like you were my lover, this. It was a certain meaning that I had misconstrued from a lot of the conversations.
Easier. Things would have been easier.
Yeah, if you're my twin flame,
so much.
Listen, fucker.
Exactly.
This doesn't feel like twin flame.
That's right.
Yet understanding a greater context around twin flame was very releasing for me, or freeing for me, of realizing that you're literally like one of my most sacred contracts I could ever have, that is my divine reflection. And a twin flame is simply the reflection of everything you are that you still get to heal and love. So of course there's this, working through all the human stuff of being able to see light in all of it and accept all of it. So it's almost like we look at how everything that I would trigger you was just like what you still got to learn, own, and love, and same thing vice versa.
Yeah.
So to kind of recap on this, guys, is we were, some people, I don't know if most of you know this, but about a year ago is when I really got called to kind of let go of everything. And my boys moved out after they've been with me, their whole lives, 15 and 12 years old. They moved out to be with their dad for the first time and let go of the magical manifestation mansion and the whole identity of everything that I had. And you and I had gone to India and we went to India. Actually, it was our first trip to India to study with one of the reincarnated avatars and go through a beautiful transformational experience. And everything in me said, India is either going to take us to a whole nother level of relationship or it's going to complete what was coming through at the time was a karmic relationship because it was like, or we're in completion. And I was very open and honest about that because we talk about all things completely openly.
Yeah, you were, yet I didn't. I still
you weren't allowing it to
I still didn't have that understanding, yeah.
So it was in India, I got the clear direction that I was meant to go on this journey. And what kept coming through was with aloneness, a journey of aloneness. And I was like, why would I want to do that? I love my alone time. There's nothing to heal in the aloneness. And so when we came back from India was when we were actually planning on going on this global citizen journey together.
Yeah.
And
traveling, location independent.
Yeah, location free, totally global citizen journey. And as I got to listen to my inner truth and what was calling and you fully supporting that, we decided to, go different ways for our global journeys, right?
Yeah.
And so still the most beautiful, like pure in love, conscious uncoupling. You still helped move stuff out of the magical manifestation mansion and wrap up everything with my team, putting in the truck and selling stuff. And so, we both went on our journeys and our separate directions. And this was 2 months ago in October. The one place I knew I was going this year was India. I was going back to India for Navaratri. Everything else was moment by moment, and yet I knew India Navaratri was calling me.
Yeah, everything was moment for moment to me too.
Yeah.
I mean, really moment to moment. Sometimes I'd be in a place I wasn't sure I was going, and I had a week to decide.
Yeah.
And you didn't know, but I always had Navaratri on the radar.
Yeah.
You were completely sure of it. I knew it was a good possibility, and that would have been like an ideal that I'll make that happen. I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so it was interesting that just a few days before Navaratri, I did some of my own plant medicine psychedelic journey and had a huge healing around you and just really coming to neutrality, which is such an important concept to understand.
Yes, yeah.
Which is neutrality is like, there's no attachment or expectation either way. Like, so I literally came to this place of neutrality knowing whether I end up with you or I don't, I'm in complete peace and harmony. And I'd done so much healing around my own divine sacred union from within, being the masculine and feminine within. And funny thing is I felt Dallas coming into my field. I was like, I feel like this dude's coming back into my field somewhere. And I was tuning in and feeling, I was like, I already was feeling that after India, and I was in India at the time already. I actually had gone
and we had spent a little time together during the journey. We met up in Croatia.
We did meet up in Croatia.
And I was still messaging you and you were responding.
Yeah, and I was still like,
we weren't
can you
completely
please give me my space so I can move on and heal. And
there was moments of radio silence.
Yeah, there was
connected.
definitely a dance of feeling this strong pull because we have such a sacred contract. And that's some of what we want to bring clarity to is just of bringing the freedom into it. So I'll finish up this recap and we can dive into some of the things that we want to share yet. So I was already in India, had already done some experiences and knew Navaratri was next. And I was already feeling into where I was feeling called to go after Navaratri because that was my last experience in India. I was feeling like it might be Bali. So I was thinking, is this guy going to show up in my field in Bali? Because, both didn't know where we were going. And I just knew and I felt. And so I reached out and I just said, I just wanted you to know I had this complete healing around you and just honoring him and appreciating all the reflections I was now receiving where I could see that things that I resisted or I was triggered by were just like the most beautiful reflection of me that I wasn't willing to see at that time. And so it was like, I see this, I see this, I see this. And I was like, holy fuck, we are twin flames.
Very confirming
and you were,
for me.
I'm sure you enjoyed that, right?
Yeah.
You sent me some other message.
Well, I mean, we both since have gotten greater context of what that term means,
Totally.
But just it was validating.
Yeah,
I have to say.
for the whole entire time we dated, it was like, we're twin flames, we're twin flames. And I was like, no, we're not. No, we're not. So
I was doing the man thing. I was doing the sacred man for like holding the space for the relationship to the best as I could. Yeah, of course.
He held the field many times, and it is probably why we continued to dance, because even my patterns were the leaving pattern, and your pattern was the freeze pattern. And so these are different things you understand around just the way that you're programmed and operate. But so what was I saying?
You knew I was going to, you were telling me you got these.
So I told him that, we're twin flames. And I remember there was like a couple weeks before you went to some experience I think you were in Sedona.
Yeah.
And he did a whole video on how my beloved, she used to say bliss and flow and ease. And I just wasn't willing to accept it. And I was like, damn straight, like he finally gets it. So we both had these beautiful reflections of ourself while we were on our own journey of healing, which I feel like is very important.
Yeah. I mean, most people might feel the call or desire to go travel by themselves and don't. I mean, we were traveling have been traveling for a long time in multiple countries on our own, and it's been awesome.
Yeah. So this is what was interesting is I felt him coming in my field. Yeah. I had a huge call to do some healing work around him because I noticed I felt a little bit of resistance. He kept popping into my mind and my field, and I had this little bit of like heaviness in my body around it. So I did my own healing and was like, dude, wow, thank you. I see all this. I've come to neutrality on this. And then I was like, hey, so where are you headed next? Because I just had this feeling. And literally, he's like, literally in a few hours, I'm headed to the airport. And I'm going to Navaratri in India. And I was just like, oh my fucking
I was just going to arrive. I was going to just arrive and surprise her. But, it's in the way that we experience relationship in each other is that we're very authentic and honest. And so
there's nothing to hide.
I hesitated to hide it.
I could feel it though. That's the thing. I felt something. I was
gonna hide it as a surprise, but even that I was like, oh, I'll just tell her.
And this is the funny thing. If he would have done that in the past where I was at, I would have been like, you motherfucker. This was my experience. You knew I was coming to Navaratri because in the past I saw this almost like this pattern of let me reach out or let me do this thing or let me show up this way, which was you holding the field. But it was, to me, it felt like an invasion. It felt like manipulation. It felt like I wasn't being honored to give me my space and let me heal and do my thing. And so in the past, I would have very much been like, hey, that's, you fucker, right? And because I had done the healing and I saw it from the clarity it was like, you know what? I have no right ever to put on someone else what they can or cannot do, to not have their own experience. And I was in such a place of trusting the universe. It was like, hey, you know what? Funny. I laughed at it. And I was like, well, obviously, I mean, Navaratri was already a really intense process. I'm like, if this is what the divine and the universe has called in, and I honored that you said you felt really called to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, because on my side, I got to get clear as to whether or not I was forcing something or had an ulterior motive, because I know in my own growth through relationship, control has been an issue. And so
3 times in your gene key chart.
Yeah, exactly. It's in my gene keys very powerfully.
The shadow
of control.
Yeah.
And
in relationship, it's all in the Venus sequence.
Yeah, it's all in the Venus sequence. And what that brings up oftentimes is manipulation, yet on a very unconscious level. I would never intend, even in my darkest days, before I, let's say, for the sake of the language that we like to use, conscious or started to wake up, even before that, I was not one to consciously manipulate or purposely manipulate. Yet there's so many things that we do unconsciously that is actual manipulation. We don't realize we're trying to manipulate. That's right.
Exactly.
So I got to tune in and see, was it coming from, like, is this really my journey to go do? And it was. So,
so
that's important too.
What's beautiful is, again, there's a lot of things that even in the past, if you take the example of the twin flame thing where you're like, we're twin flames. And I wasn't fully embodying to be like, awesome, I honor that for you. And it not trigger me, not have an attachment to it and to own my own truth. And so I had arrived at this place of like, wow, if that's where you feel called to go, I can only honor you as a divine being, that's what's calling for you. It's just like honoring my own children, like wherever they feel called to go, I'm not ever, there's no control, because control is always controlling you. And so I was just like, wow, I guess the universe and the divine has some epic amazing experience if they're going to drop you back into my field. And so just to, go on from there, we had a beautiful Navaratri experience. It was like we experienced each other in such a different way of like so many of our triggers and the things that, would have brought up things for us. We were just like, ha ha ha, laughing our asses off, having a good time. And there was a few that like I felt some deep core wounds, but just saw it. It was like a whole other level of embodiment for me to go, whatever I see in front of me, if there's any form of resistance, it is mine to own and it is mine to see. And so we had a very different experience, and then ended up, I was headed to Bali and you decided to go to Bali. And through funny things, I was in a different place in Bali and some of my places fell through. And as I seek out very sacred spaces, and the spaces weren't as sacred as I thought they were. So I ended up getting to go, be at your place for a week. And then I went off to my other place and you came out to see that. And we literally tuned in. It was like, it feels really good to be in the same space right now.
Yeah.
So we ended up sharing this space we're at together, right now, this gorgeous, beautiful private villa and a resort for the last month. And then now...
True.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. Oh, my gosh.
2 months. Yeah. 2
So
months.
we drop back into each other's space.
That's right.
Both still very much in a place of there's no meaning on this. We actually did a whole live around Twin Flames.
Yeah.
There's no meaning. There's no attachments. There's no expectations. And literally in less than an hour, you are headed to the airport for Greece.
I am going to Greece.
And I am headed tonight to go to Australia.
Australia.
Where I felt called.
Yes.
So, I mean, overall, that feels like a long recap, but I hopefully you guys laugh at the funny, silly story. But overall, what would you say we really want to share some understanding or context to, or share in our own transparency what we've experienced to discover this place of feeling absolute peace and freedom?
Yeah. One would be that the greatest love is unconditional love, right? So expanding ultimate love is unconditional love. Ultimate love is freedom, and so we can talk about, control and manipulation and the fear that comes with losing the idea that we can lose love, can't lose love.
Yeah.
And when you think love needs to look a particular way, and you're stuck in the idea that the love has a particular frame, a certain container or frame, and you don't allow it to grow and evolve, then you actually suffocate it. And if you were to lean in and allow it to grow and evolve, it would grow into a greater love. It would grow into more freedom. It would grow into more unconditional love, even if the context, even if the context of the relationship would change.
Yeah. So the context of a relationship can change because we obviously, through our own journey, it's like, because I think there was that allowance, where before when it was like, no, I got to hang on, I got to do that.
That's right.
It literally was suffocating it versus allowing it to grow. And actually what I've seen that I honored so much in you as we, experienced each other again in Navaratri was there was this place where you were like, you know what, like you were in total neutrality too. It was like, you know what, of course I still absolutely love you as my beloved. You've always held that field. And you're like, and, there's no attachments anymore. Like, I don't need that. I know I'm whole and you're whole and I only want you to be happy. And it's like, so, if it aligns, it aligns. And we just choose this experience of being whole and complete on our own.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And what I think what we see commonly in relationships is, okay, this is love. And that means, we're in a relationship. And
meaning.
It's got to look this way. And if it doesn't look this way, then it's not love.
I'm not happy yet.
I'm not going to be happy. That's right. And then on top of that, if it's not going to be this, then it's nothing. So it's either,
I push you away.
That's right. It's either the Disney story or I push you away.
Fun,
that's right.
Amazing myth that's been created for our society, right?
And there's so much potential in between. There's so many other infinite possibilities. And you can learn and grow and experience so much more if you open and allow it.
Yeah, so I love that. I remember when I first got the download and the feeling that I was meant to just start letting go and do the global journey. And at the time, we were fully committed in relationship. And I remember you saying like, whoa, I feel like I could only travel, was it like 1 month or 3 months a year or something like that? It was, you were like, I feel like I could only be away for 1 to 3 months. And otherwise I feel like I want to be here at home base and grounded for the work that you got to do. And the first thing that came up for me was like, well, okay, cool. If that's what feels true for you and this is what feels true for me, then why would we be in relationship? And you're like, well, why wouldn't we be in relationship?
Right. Just because you're traveling.
It kind of opened up this idea of freedom.
Sure.
That freedom, it has no limits. Like there is no meaning or context on, putting a box around something. And as we looked at the stories, like you were having some stories around, can I create my business the way that I want to create and be free. And when we started to just lean in, you're like, whoa, yeah, that's actually a yes for me too. And so that's when it became a full-on yes for us to both go and travel. Yet this idea that, the more we are coming from so much of the relationship world, I know we haven't operated in this place for years. It feels like a challenge to connect to or remember. What do most relationships operate from? But it's a place of like assumptions, projections.
Totally. Like the idea that if you were going to go travel for 6 months or a year, that meant we weren't beloveds or we weren't meant to be in a relationship. Most people would have that idea, because it's like, well, then what's the point? Or yet, because ultimate love is freedom, if I get to just be in my own experience, because I do feel, had I felt called to just be rooted and stay at home and be working, well, then I've got my own life. I've got, I've got friends and I've got my work, and I can continue to have experiences and just live and stay connected with you. And maybe I come out and visit you. Maybe you come back home sometime. And then we Zoom and Skype all the time. We call, there's so many infinite possibilities.
But that also meant that we got to see where I was like, would it feel good to continue to be in a relationship, or to say, cool, this is where you feel called to go. But I think you hit on something that most people in the norm or the collective don't realize, is that you are a whole and complete being having your own life experience. And we've been taught and raised that like, I need this person so that they make me happy, or the circumstance has to look this way so I'm happy. Totally. And if it's not, I'm unhappy.
Or if they're going to travel, that means I have to travel.
Or anything to, that like, it comes with this idea of compromise and sacrifice. Relationships have been taught, well, a marriage is about compromise and sacrifice and relationship. And so they're like, well, I can't because, I have to do this for them, which is really just coming from a should low vibrational love state, which is resentment. And it's low vibrational love that just means I'm holding off my life or not fulfilling my truth because I think I have to show up a certain way, or I have to consider everything that you're doing too. And all of that comes from a very
that's not more
shitty ass love.
Yeah, that's not more freedom.
Yeah.
And it's not unconditional love of myself and honoring what's true for me. It's not unconditional love for you and honoring what's true for you.
Yeah. Because ultimately, if we're not happy, and this was something that I caught in our relationship, is because my old past patterns was, take care of everybody, make everybody happy, wear the mask. I think a lot of women grow up with that idea, is like, we're here to make the guy happy and take care of the kids and do everything and run around with our heads cut off in perfectionism to make everybody happy. And how I would notice that there was even that always like, well, what feels good for you? And even checking in to be like, oh wait, when I missed my workout because we decided to go get breakfast and and throw off my whole routine, that actually didn't feel good for me. And to even find the minute micro places where it was always speaking to like, I'm always free to act and operate from what feels really good for me and what feels good for you. And I think the idea is just for people to this comes through. And I think about the way that we view love, and we go, I'll love you if you ... Right. Because then I feel safe to love, because then I won't get hurt. But all that is that's a lack of love. It's like a transactional love. Like if you do the dishes, we'll have sex. And
that's
if you
the
show
type
me
of unconscious manipulation that I was talking about. That doesn't look like manipulation.
Yeah,
it looks like, hey, I'm
holding myself safe. And I'm trying to protect my heart.
Exactly.
And so we go into relationship being like, well, when they show me that and they act that way, then I'll do this. And all we are doing is holding back love. And when I realized like love is the most natural state, love is so unconditional. Love is the safest place to be. Right. Love is the most, natural thing that we have. And so instead of this idea or story we have, like, let me box love or let me hold back on love, it's actually, well, that's what creates a lack of love. And then you end up creating the exact thing you're afraid of, just like the clinging or the controlling. Instead to be like, how can I love fully, embrace fully, give love fully, and work on myself to be an open vessel to also receive love fully. And that's that really does create freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's, triggers are beautiful. We all know that they bring up exactly what we get to see, what we get to shine more light on, what we get to love more. And it could be what we get to love more in ourselves. Yet it could also be just the unconditional love that we get to give, like the holding space for that other person at an even deeper and greater level. And a lot of these things that I know.
Letting them have their experience.
Yeah, letting them have their
without
experience.
an attachment to you.
Yeah, and loving them more, because a lot of times those triggers, they're coming from a wound and from a hurt place. So when we take it personal, then we feel like we need to defend and attack. Yet instead, if we just hold the space and understand that they may be hurting, then it's easier to give unconditional love. And then, those triggers can be seen and healed. Now, I know in my own personal experience while I was traveling, one of the things that I got to be with was the idea of abandonment. When each time when we were in relationship and you wanted to pull away.
Because I felt like a dog hanging onto my leg.
Yeah, well,
from that feeling.
I felt like two things were happening. One, you were either feeling trapped, and so you wanted, as we've been talking about, you wanted to feel the freedom.
Yes.
Right? And because you and I did so much work together, we found...
we did so much work.
Yeah, we found all the different layers that might have been attached to in terms of past lives and different...
unconscious commitments and energy and the way that we're structured.
So here you are trying not to be trapped, and here I am thinking I'm just holding the field, but also probably holding on a little too tight. Then at the same time...
It's a really sweet way to put it.
I'm being compassionate with myself. Yeah. So then there was also times when you would be thinking that I was rejecting you and lashing out, because for you it's rejection, the fear of being rejected, that I would be judging you and that somehow telling you that you weren't good enough and rejecting you in some way.
Wounds.
Right. And for me, it was about being abandoned. So here you are trying to get space and leave, and it's reflecting back to me those fears of somebody leaving and being abandoned. Yeah. So on my journey, I got to really, be with the idea of abandonment and how I can never be abandoned. Because as long as I'm with myself, I can't abandon myself.
Right.
And when I remember that I'm always connected to Source, which is in me, working as me and through me, I can't be abandoned. And when I allow for unconditional love and when I allow for freedom, then I'm not abandoned, because then the relationship, even if it changes context, it doesn't have to go away, right? Even if it changes context, it doesn't.
Me, right?
Yeah, well, that's my point is even if you travel and go away, that's not abandonment.
You're still whole.
You're just choosing your own journey. Right. You're not abandoning me. Those are two very different frames and contexts,
Right, but it hits
and
the
I'm
core
still
wound.
whole and complete, right?
It hits the core wound in the programming of abandonment, and that was, and so a little bit of context around that is like even.
And I don't think we would have had these realizations to the depth that we did had we stayed in relationship.
Yes, and that's what I want to bring this around to.
The frame of the relationship
is the beauty of that, like what we both got called to see, because in the space we were in, so my past construct of relationship, because I grew up in survival and had to make it all work and take care of everybody, and tons of trauma, from sicknesses to death to etc. It was very much relationships are a responsibility. And so when it would show up that it felt like I wasn't free and it was like one more person I got to take care of. So you see how the beautiful, like the exact contract we have, you had to have the thing where it was like, hold on, I need So it felt like responsibility to me, that it was like, oh my God, I gotta, no. And vice versa, the exact opposite. And following the inner truth, it's like we went as far as we could go in that frame. And then there's something was like, see, the words that came through for me was, you get to go on this journey of aloneness. And now I can't even resonate with that words, because I realized the same thing you did, is that it was a journey with myself. I'm like, I can never be alone because I'm with me and I'm with the divine, and I'm always surrounded by this energy, and there's always an interdependence of energy with all things. So there is no alone. Yet I got to be called to that journey because, I traveled the whole world. I had my retreats all over the world, but what did I have? I always had my team that had driver and communicators to pick me up, and literally a team of support around me as we were in different countries and all the things we did. And this was the first time it was like, okay, I'm just going moment by moment. I'm letting go of everything and I'm going with just myself. And the things that got triggered for me allowed me to see the imprinting in my genetics, and the deepest stuff around aloneness is being attacked, it's being abused, it's being left behind, I'm gonna die. And that was triggering that rejection of like, I'm not safe. And so it's just, I remember when we were in India the first time, and really we had this stuff come up around like you feeling abandonment and me feeling the opposite. And all of a sudden it was like clicked. We're like, whoa, I see this now as the exact reflection of what inside me still gets to be healed and loved. And that by me following my truth and you following yours and going the way that we did, we both got to learn those lessons, which then everything that you wanted, right, by creating freedom, it like came back around, where then we experienced each other in Navarachi in India in such a beautiful, expanded, more conscious love than we ever had experienced. And then even through what we've experienced here, it was like, oh, this is what divine union with a sacred soul companion standing in truth and wholeness feels like, where we've both totally been in like, again, no attachments. Like, I'm going to go do my thing. I'm going to go on an adventure. You're going to do yours. There's things we did together. Yeah. There's you feeling called to do your stuff or business, me feeling called to do mine. And it was just a whole other level of experience that it grew into because we allowed, almost like going back to those principles of knowing I'm whole and complete. And if there's ever, and this is the main thing I want people to hear, is that if there's ever any resistance, if there's ever any feeling of anything other than complete acceptance, and this is what we kept finding layers to, was like, we come together to find these layers as these beautiful twin flame reflections of like, there's another layer of obviously what I get to accept within myself and take responsibility for, because resistance energy is simply contraction and it's blocking manifestation. So until you're willing to move beyond that or shift that, all you're going to do is continue to receive the same. And so I think when people leave a relationship and they go, this isn't working because ... See, we had the feeling of we both felt called to go. I felt called to go somewhere different. And you were like, cool, I get to honor that. And yet I think most people go, this relationship isn't working. I'm going to leave the relationship. Yeah. But when they leave the relationship, they take themselves with them. Yeah. And so they take all their shit with them and they take all the same ideas and patterns and programs.
That's right.
What would you say to that?
Yeah. I mean,
you just said it.
Well, because I've taught this in when it comes to business as well. A lot of people who are trying to leave a career. So just to give an analogy, when you hate your job and you want to get out and go to the next job or start a business, the things that you are hating about your job, the things that are triggering you about your current job, oftentimes we'll externalize them. It's the coworker, it's the boss, it's the not enough pay. Yet we're not aware. We're not aware to what's happening unconsciously in us that's also creating the dissatisfaction with the job, because at one point in time you got hired at this new place and it was the greatest thing ever and you were so excited and it was this new frontier and this new opportunity and it was going to be
you're already not in a place of loving yourself enough that you took a shitty job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course. But most likely it was going to be some kind of upgrade in your life. It was an improvement. It was a good thing. And then it devolved into this negative thing. And the same thing is relationships. You're so excited about this new fresh love and there's so much hope and potential, and then it devolves into this thing that is creating maybe pain or resistance in your life. And so if you're not clear about your role in that and you just jump ship, you just end the relationship, then you are going to take those unconscious patterns and beliefs and habits with you to the next relationship. Yeah. And you'll call in someone who's going to bring up those traumas, those core wounds, those triggers, until you see them and heal them again in yourself and are free and clear of them. The same is true I've seen in career. It's like you leave the job and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, a year later, the same stuff you were complaining about and struggling with is now at this next business because you take you everywhere you go.
Yeah. Well, and I think everyone, when they tune in and go, well, let me look at my track record. Yeah. Let me look at my results, because your results can never lie. Yeah. So it's like, as I dive into unconscious experience with people, they're like, oh my God, I can see how this same cycle has happened over and over and over again. Yep. And so with this, it's like, patterns. That's why we got to look at, we did so much internal work. Everything was and we know enlightenment is light and joy, but it was like between all the stuff we were doing, it was always seeing the deeper layers of even looking at what is your relationship to relationship. And as I mentioned before, saying how when I recognize, my relationship to relationship is responsibility, it comes with this feeling of sacrifice, then I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for how I have to take care of someone, or this is going to show up a certain way. And I'm not witnessing all the greatness that is there, as well as also not seeing why it's mine to own. So I think when we just go back to the understanding that everything in front of you is for your benefit. Totally. Everything in front of you is what is there for you to heal. Because otherwise, it's not I need to go, do something outside of me to receive it. It is what was our journey. Our journey was both going deeper within. It was like, can I fully be with all of myself, all of my scared feelings, all of my shadows, all my darkness, all the fears, all the thoughts, and can I love all that? And for me, one of the beautiful gifts I received was such a different level and layer of embodiment of falling in love with myself, a luscious love affair with myself, because I know that divine union can only come from without when you first receive it from within.
Yeah.
And so as I had done a lot of healing work around aligning and balancing the feminine and masculine within and the divine union within, and focused on that, and I felt this like such fulfillment in myself that it was like, there is nothing lacking. There is nothing I need to receive. Where before it was like, well, when we could then this is, they're putting meaning on things. This is what divine union would look like.
Yeah.
This is what, I'm seeking outside of myself, and coming from a place of I don't have it. Lack only creates more lack and only keeps it always in process. And so I think one of the beautiful freedoms we received was really getting and embodying the journey to be whole at a whole nother level of body with ourselves, yet also to be able to not put meaning on anything.
Right.
Like, and I still, and still even as we've been together, there's been constant times, it's like, all of a sudden we're like, whoa, there can be this feeling of sadness that comes up. It's like, whoa, we have so many great, beautiful things, but we don't feel called to be with each other traveling right now. And I definitely felt Australia was a journey of my own. And yet we didn't ever put a meaning on even this experience, to be like, well, this means we're together again, or we're in a relationship, or there's any attachments, because we know
it doesn't mean that there wasn't tendency to feel like that might have felt like it could be true, but catching it so much easier this time.
Well, and what I noticed even for myself that I still am practicing is being present in the moment and not putting meaning or story on anything that we experience, because it's always coming from a past idea, a thought, and if anything, just when that comes up, feeling, ooh, interesting, like, and giving myself love and, like you said, compassion, and seeing, oh, the little girl in me is afraid that, like, this has been, this might be our last experience, and that creates sadness, instead of being in this moment, being like, like, let's love and honor this moment, what we're in. And so what I really appreciated is both of us knowing, that you're going a different direction, I'm going a different direction. And who knows if we realign, who knows if we both call in other soul companions, whatever we experience. See, we're both like, you know what? I just have absolute love and honor for you, and know that
so much. I can't even put in words. There's no words to describe just how much I love and adore you and honor you and cherish you. You are you're a miracle manifested. And I can't deny that at all. And I know that if I didn't get to see how I was resisting certain things, or, putting meaning on things, or holding on too tight, then I would just bring that into the next thing. And being with somebody who's so powerful and so strong, who could reflect back to me, the way that I was showing up and behaving is like just the most massive gift. And that's the other side of the twin flame. It's like, of course we get to bring up these core wounds that we get to see, and it's a beautiful reflection of where we're not giving more light to the other or to ourselves. And at the same time, the power and potential for just the deepest, most amazing love is also available, right? It's like, because the greatest depth is there, so then also must mean the greatest
capacity.
High. Exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, last night, as we knew, okay, like, only choosing to move forward in absolute honor and appreciation for every experience we had. No speaking to a story of what we thought in the past of like, well, remember when da 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 da, and like, it's just like those things have no place in the present moment, as we got to own and see them fully for what they are. And this is really the journey for everyone, is to see all of it out of love, that love was all that existed. We chose this contract together to be this beautiful reflection for each other. We chose every single experience and interaction as our soul's kindest act for ourselves to grow and evolve. And so, to only hear all of it out of love, and to see all of it out of love, and to experience it all out of love. And so we actually did ceremony together last night. Yeah. You're giggling.
I'm giggling because I see now, I like, as you're talking, I'm actually
ahas and downloads coming in.
I'm actually visually seeing times when I would get mad at you because of something that you were feeling and reflecting, like to give, I know sometimes, I'm trying to get more concrete language here, is like, you might be upset because of something I said to you, And
did I say, I notice, I feel, and I took conscious responsibility?
But I would, so I'm catching how many times I would be triggered and I'd be reactionary. So that's one thing that I've learned to
responding.
Yeah, exactly. Versus responding consciously and taking space, not taking it personal, holding a greater container for all of your energy and emotions.
You got some big energy.
Yeah, you got big energy. It's beautiful. and so what I'm noticing is there were times when I would be yelling at you or upset with you because I wanted you to see how much I loved you. Like I'd be telling you,
if you just saw it the way I saw it, I just knew this, and I'm like, this doesn't feel good.
No,
this does not feel like love.
And you'd be like, I don't feel safe. Like, you are safe. It's just, how could you not feel safe with me? I'm the
safest person there is, right?
That's right.
I've heard that before.
So many examples like that of was like, I'm just trying to tell you you're beautiful. There's nothing, and I'd be yelling, and so your body is like reacting, like contracting, right? And that was the irony to that. That was me trying to force love, trying to explain to you love instead of softening and trying to find in me why I was like trying to honor what you were experiencing, and at the same time find in me why was it having to come out that way? Why was I being triggered and reactionary if I was really trying to tell you how much I loved you or how beautiful you were? Just interesting. That was something.
And all those are the greatest reflections for us, or the greatest experiences.
It just shows that really at the core, love was at the core.
Yeah. That's
the irony.
Right.
Is it comes out in these weird ways because we're so patterned and conditioned and we're in fear that the other person won't see how much we love them.
Yeah. How many times you were like, I feel like you're not hearing me. Yeah. Like you wanted to get it across, and it's like, and I was like, and we're mirrors. Because I'm doing the same thing. And so what's interesting around that you share is that, coming from what's behind it, whenever there's a feeling of resistance, what's behind it is a core wound. The little boy who just was, wanted to feel like you were being man enough or holding this space, or I was safe and all that. And yet because there was a feeling of you weren't trusted, then that level of like, well, let me and then to me was exact reflection of, whoa, I'm not feeling safe, dude.
That's right. It came out as force, and force is fear. So instead of being in the place of love, I then go into a place of fear, thinking I'm expressing love.
Yeah, and really it's through feeling all of our feelings that we create our freedom.
Yeah, that we can even recognize these things are happening.
Yeah, and these are the beautiful things that we, always got to go through the layers of just seeing is like, oh, you know what? And sometimes it doesn't even consciously make sense, and this was, I think, a part of our journey was embodying a greater level of saying, I hold the field for you to have whatever experience you want to have, whatever, to feel triggered, to feel emotion, to feel whatever, and knowing, and that's really the journey for us is to go, I would only feel a trigger to that if I am attached to it. And versus the greater understanding is that nothing has the ability to take your power away unless you give it power, right? So it's like, thinking that, well, because you're upset, then it must mean or it triggers me instead of, and so we got to practice. And I think being on our own in many ways, like it was so beautiful to have that experience coming back together is how much more it was like the law of polarity applied, which is like if there was a trigger or feeling or core wound, and I could even speak to it and be like, oh, what this simple thing here that happened. So let's say, for instance, my water bottle, right? Like we'll share a concrete example. I have this glorious glass water bottle that is labeled with all of these frequencies from everything from divine unconditional love to harmony to peace to acceptance.
She taped a bunch of words on there using a label maker.
My assistant had a label maker last time I was in the States seeing my boys, and I just was like, oh, I'm going to amp up my water bottle to be high frequency.
Exactly. If you know about Dr. Emoto's famous water study or about changing the frequency and
we're all about however we can up level our experience and magnify our experience in this game. And anyways, so I have my beautiful water bottle, and I'd taken it out of the cover the day before. I don't remember why.
Because you wanted to see more of the words. You wanted to see the words. You said you wanted to see the words. I don't know,
something. It could have been that. Yeah. Anyways, and I one morning I'm doing yoga, and I had my water bottle there, and then I invited Dallas to come do yoga with me, and he accidentally walked out and
I was dragging my yoga mat, and
it fell over and broke in pieces. Yeah. And my little girl was like, like knowing that was special to me, etc. And his little boy that felt sad, he had broken my water bottle, was like, why didn't you have the cover on it? Why was it? And I was like, instantly, girl.
That came out later. That didn't come out immediately, but it did come out later.
Yeah.
And I didn't say it that harshly, but I did say it.
Yes. So, but the point of it was his reaction.
I do own that. I said.
His reaction was based out of sadness, fear. He knew how much that water bottle meant to me, that I'm in a whole other third world country. There's no way I'm making another one of those.
I felt guilty. That's right.
Right. And I was like, I literally was knowing, of course he didn't intend to do it. I just was like, oh, I felt sad that my water bottle was that, but was like, okay. And I was even thinking maybe I can save the names and maybe, Cammie, I can get another water bottle. And Cammie's my head assistant. And I was like, maybe I can recreate this. But it was just, I was feeling sad just about that. And then to have that reaction, it triggered a core wound in me that was like, no matter what I do, I'm going to get abused. That's right. See, I'm going to get attacked. And I had a whole lifetime of, several lifetimes of this, but my whole growing up, I had rape attempt, stalker, abuse, many forms of attack. And so as I've healed in my journey and cleared the karma and done the things, attack can show up in a very non-attacking way.
Subtle way.
Very subtle thing can trigger that core wound and emotion. And, I just remember it triggered such a painful, deep wound in me. I literally was like bawling my eyes out for a day. Yeah. And just really...
Well, most men think that they're adding value. They're correcting the problem. Well, why didn't you have the protective rubber on the glass bottle? If the protective rubber on there, that wouldn't have happened. So one, it's deflection. It's not taking ownership because it happened and I was responsible. And if I was watching where I was going, I wouldn't have done that. Two, even if it's like we think we're adding value by stating the obvious, right? But what we don't realize is it's coming from a place of attack. Yeah. I'm making something that I feel bad about because I feel bad about it. I don't want to feel bad about it. So let me deflect that and put that on you that had you done this, then that wouldn't have happened. Right. And so, and most men, what we'll do is we'll make it so minor, like, oh my God, what's the big deal? Either we'll make the breaking of the bottle not a big deal, or we'll make the statement of like, I'm just speaking the obvious. Had you, I'm not attacking. Had you put the rubber on there, that wouldn't have happened. Yeah. But we don't realize like how painful even these subtle things can be
because they're real feelings fully felt.
Yeah, we don't want to own that.
Yeah,
we don't want to feel that. We don't want to own that's that somebody can be. We don't want to appreciate that level of sensitivity.
Yeah, well, and that's
something to love.
Something I'd love you to speak to, or I'd love you to hear from you of how you feel. And I know I'm aware we have 15 minutes till literally you get to be like grabbing your bags and getting your drive to the airport. And I love that we both were like, this feels true, like we get to share it.
It's really present.
I completely shut down all my emotions as a kid. I could never be heard or seen, or I had to wear a mask. There was never, I couldn't have an opinion. It was always like, well, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I would show up for everyone else how they wanted. And I shut down my feelings completely. So it's of course, the beautiful, we know our mess becomes our message and the gift is in the shit of that was part of my shadow work and my experience as a child. To the now, I teach people in depth on feeling and healing because we know that you can only heal it by feeling it fully. True. It's allowing it to fully be all completely felt and exposed that then it's transmuted because the energy's been felt and moved through versus suppress, push it down. Right. So in one of my gene keys, my main purpose as the future human, that is my acidic state is sensitivity. Now, actually, my gift is sensitivity. And I used to believe that sensitivity was weak and I couldn't show my emotions. And you saw me the other day as I got the little fun scooter road rash experience. I went back into this whole, like, I didn't shed a tear, I'm breathing, and I'm like, I'm a tough chick and I can handle all things. And then when we got back and I opened the space for me to feel, I was like a blubbering baby that was feeling everything. And so I know that through our journey, there was times, and you grew up in a way of like comedy or deflecting, or that was how you dealt with feelings and emotions. And I had evolved to this place of like consciously knowing, like, I notice this is what I'm feeling. And as I was speaking to before, guys, is a lot of times I said it's something so silly and surface when you allow the feeling. When I allowed all that to come through, I got to heal a very deep core wound. I got to be with a very deep core wound that simple little silly thing triggered. But if I don't allow and go like, this is what I notice is there, and consciously that wouldn't make any sense from the experience. Right. But I would love, because you grew into so much more through our journey and witnessed me even grow into more of like really fully feeling my feelings and speaking to it and being sensitive and catching maybe where you used to think something was, because I used to think exactly what you described, like, well, I don't want to share because I don't want to bother you, or I don't want to, it be shamed for me to feel my feelings. And you saw sensitivity at a whole nother level come through. And I now hold it as one of my greatest gifts and strengths.
Sure.
Because that's why I feel the energy of everything. I'm so sensitive to the energy and the underlying frequency. And that's because I've allowed and opened up this gift. But I'd love to hear maybe what your experience of that journey is being a man, or, what that opened up for you.
I think, well, when I was younger, what I witnessed was either an extreme of emotion, which was, now looking back, I just see that my mom she was having her experience. She's actually always been okay with feeling her feelings. And when it wasn't honored, she would shut down. She would completely shut down, literally go into the bedroom, put the blankets over her head, close out the world, or go into the bathroom and lock the door and just, literally shut out the world. Yet I realize now it was just because she wasn't being appreciated and loved and honored for the range of emotion that she was experiencing and her level of sensitivity and what she felt to be true. Because my dad's thing, from, not completely insensitive, but to a very high degree, he was insensitive because that's what he learned, what he was taught. And so it was either, oh my God, come on, you're being so dramatic. It's not that big a deal. And he would minimize and really suppress what my mom was feeling, or make humor, go into sarcasm and just deflect. That was it. It was little to no option. There no other option. It was very rare that I would see my dad actually just holding my mom or appreciating what she was feeling and being okay with it and being with it. He would leave the house and go be with another woman. He would either, get high, or he would make jokes, or just yell and say, oh my God, it's not that big a fucking deal. Just relax, and really devalue what her experience was. So I learned some of those patterns and behaviors too. I've been pretty good my whole life with being with emotion. Yet I noticed that because you have this beautiful gift of sensitivity, and watching you really starting to own that and allow it, I got to really step into being an even greater example of a divine king. What I'm feeling I'm evolving into and being called into, which is being a divine king, really being able to witness and hold space for the deepest level of emotion, for the highest sensitivity, because what that opens up is more intimacy, more transparency, more truth, more authenticity, more unconditional love, more freedom,
more joy and pleasure,
more joy and more pleasure.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing about sensitivity. The gift of the sensitivity and being able to feel all things is you then start to create and hold a higher frequency and vibration for your standard of your life. For what you'll be able to tolerate and allow and accept in your life, it raises to more love.
That's why I'm so picky about where
raises
I
to
stay
more light.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah. So I now have a greater container for what I can receive. I now have a greater container for the space I can hold for someone. I now have a greater container for letting in more love and more light into my life, and
also probably what you don't
hold
tolerate.
A higher frequency. Yeah, exactly. And more clear about what I will and will not tolerate in my space.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, and what it reminded me of is when you said that, because I know we get to wrap literally, is just that relationship and the beauty and journey of relationship, this calling forth, relationships are meant to magnify our experience.
Sure.
And I remember so long we're realizing that, you can't actually obtain your absolute ascension until you see yourself through the eyes of another. So it is through owning and accepting, because we are all things. We have every single trait that is of the universe. And so it's until I can own that fully and love that fully and honor that fully and see that fully at any level that we're not owning it is simply to deny ourselves. And that's why when we love ourselves that much, we can't do anything but love the other, because the other is an extension of ourselves and the seeing of ourselves. And so I feel obviously we could go for hours and hours and hours of, even sharing examples. Yeah,
I think even more greater examples and even more concrete examples of
how it shows up in your life. And
but maybe that's another conversation.
Yeah. Well, I just know that, love is the inclusion of all things, not the exclusion. I think that was our main desire here is here we're both heading off to another space, and there's no meaning, there's no attachments, there's no expectations, there's only honoring, there's only appreciation. Everything here feels
present,
complete and healed and loved and whole.
Yeah, it's real presence.
Yeah.
I'm not in the future worried about what could or could not, may not happen. I'm not in the past worried about what should happen. I'm just right here in this moment with you.
Yeah. So I honor you. I appreciate you. Thank you for allowing us to just share and be the truth that we are to hopefully whoever receives this obviously is hearing this for a reason and getting to bring a greater context in your life of love, that it is simply our only job in relationship is to hold a space of unconditional love, support, and acceptance. And it's the greatest gifts that we have. So I know that you are definitely one of my greatest sacred contracts and have done this many times with me in many ways and many parallel lifetimes probably right now. And so I can only speak to the story of how perfect and beautiful and amazing my experience with you has been, and how much I honor who you are and how you hold space and just the divine being I see in front of me. So thank you for all of it.
My pleasure, and thank you.
Thank you, my friends, for joining me for another amazing conversation to create change. To allow that change to take place, please integrate the tools so that you can really receive the change into your life. And I invite you to join us for even more in the Best Life Tribe and continue on your path and your journey. And remember who you really are, a divine being that is already whole, already worthy, completely deserving, and fully capable to now claim and live the life you love.